So it was the anniversary, the big anniversary. I was up in Dallas, and these interviews are on YouTube. They're online. And Leanne McAdoo, one of my reporters, comes over because I'm leading like 800 people on a march. The police had just attacked us, and it's all on video. And I said, that's Vivian Kubrick. And, she came here. She moved to Dallas because you're in Texas. And she's worried about Fukushima, and she wants to have dinner tonight. And so I'm in the car, and I see her out there with the crowd, and I Google it, and it's Vivian Kubrick. And I'm like, wow, it isn't just his daughter. It's his protege, kind of co-directed Full Metal Jacket in some of his films. She didn't want the attention or be in a shadow, but she kind of co-directed, did the music. I mean, it's come out that she was the only one in the family that he wanted to associate with at the end. And she was the chosen one by Kubrick. But then I went and had dinner with her for 2 days, hung out with her for 2 days. Then she came on the show in Austin. And then she wanted to come down in Austin and really spill her guts. And then a bunch of weird stuff happened. All hell broke loose. I'm not at liberty to get into it, against me domestically here in Austin, but also in Dallas. And then she ended up going to Florida and has been off the radar screen. But I mean, my life changed big time when I met Vivian Kubrick, and that's all I can say. Mm-hmm. And she filled in a lot of the dots, a lot of the puzzle pieces. It was amazing. She's only done like one other interview in 15 years.
Right.
And she told me basically the whole 9 yards. And I don't want to get killed over this. She didn't get into specifics or names or any of it. But she just basically, what I can tell you is her father was tortured by what he knew. Most of it was because he was highly psychic, and nobody's ever said this. I mean, I was told this, but it's clear. Because I knew separately, reading books about him, my mom and dad being a big fan, taking me to his films when they would show when I was a kid, when they were re-airing them. Everything from Spartacus to Paths of Glory to 2001 Space Odyssey to Full Metal Jacket to you name it. And she was telling me all this stuff like, well, I did The Shining, because that's all about how people are psychic and have these connections. Well, he got this about the CIA and the FBI and MI6, and how do you know all this? And he didn't know it all. He was basically envisioning it all in his earlier films. So they came to him and said, how do you know this? Because he was even getting stuff right in Dr. Strangelove, like down to the code numbers. And they were like, how do you know this? And he just knew it. So that's really the secret of Stanley Kubrick, is he was like putting out a psychic vision of, I can't believe I'm actually not doing this on my own show. I've never actually talked about this, but I can't get into all of it.
Right.
But man, the stuff she told me, and then the jive of what I already knew and what I've experienced, was beyond, like you said, the high weirdness. And she was just getting into all of it. And she said, she then knew stuff that had happened to me, and then she was, it was wild. I mean, super smart, but it was chilling. And the stuff she told me about all of it was just wild. And the system got madder and madder. And yeah, basically, the rumors that, they cut 25 minutes are true out of Eyes Wide Shut, and that the system was really mad at him, and that he wouldn't compromise. And whatever he envisioned in that movie was so dead on that he died. So I'm going to leave it at that.
What were the 25 minutes entailing? What did that involve? If you're allowed to say.
It was about 6 years ago that I was just filing some trust for my kids, and I was at the most prominent law firm in Austin, because that's where you go to file trust for your kids. And I ran into this lady who was coming in and out of the waiting room with a few of her assistants. And she was attractive, even though she was like 55 years old or whatever. And she knew who I was. I didn't know who she was, but I kind of recognized her. And she was the owner of a major defense contracting company, one of the richest women, out there. And she just said, you're going to get really, really famous. Get ready, because everything you say is true. And what you're saying is true, and that's what's going to happen. And I looked at her and I said, well, what am I saying? What's the big secret? She said, you already know. And so much of what Vivian Kubrick told me was basically the same thing. But a lot of it was off record, and a lot of it is just too fantastical to even get into. But she was obviously highly clairvoyant, or she had access to, government files on me. She knew stuff I'd gone through I've never talked about. She understood things, and she basically said that we were on the same plane, and that few people were on that same plane with her and her dad. and that was why she was drawn to move to Texas and all the rest of it. And then she wanted to come down to Austin, and then just all hell broke loose. And they launched a bunch of stuff against me, their operatives, everything in Texas, and it really got bad.
So ultimately, I experienced many of the same things when it comes to the Masonic lodges, the nature of initiation, the phone calls, the sort of the knowledge, predictive knowledge that comes into play, the visions of the astral realm. All these things are real, right? And they're oftentimes hinted at in films or shown directly in films, almost as ways, I think, for the higher ups to kind of test where people are at, to see, okay, do you guys understand this yet? I mean, as the mass of the population of the world is concerned, do you understand what we're talking about yet? Do you understand there's different levels of dimensions and veils behind the 3D realm? So I understand what you're saying.